Thunder Bay Police Service is now operating with 2 deputy police chiefs. Good evening and thank you for joining us. A shakeup for the Thunder Bay Police Service's leadership. Today, the Police Services Board named its first ever Deputy Chief of Administration. The promotion of Detective Inspector Jeremy Pearson was announced at the monthly Police Board meeting. Pearson joins Ryan Hughes, who was appointed as Deputy Chief of Operations earlier this month. In his new role, Pearson will be responsible for the overall management and direction of multiple departments of the police service. That includes finance, human resources, training and development, technology, and system supports. There will also be a transition period while the service finds a new head of major crimes, but no timeline was given. Pearson says he's excited for the new opportunity and is looking forward to working with the Chief of Police Fleury and Deputy Chief Ryan Hughes.
It's exciting and humbling, of course, the vote of confidence from the board and the responsibility that it entails. I won't say that I'm undaunted. There's a lot of work to do, and it is a new area, but I'm excited for the challenge, and I really do believe in the service and what we're doing presently, and I want to see that continue.
Currently, Detective Inspector Pearson has 20 years of service. He presented very well. The board is very pleased with the appointment and that he accepted.
Pearson's new role will come into effect tomorrow. Some good news today for Thunder Bay's transitional housing shortage. MPP Kevin Holland joined the District Social Services Board to announce $8.3 million for 3 local organizations. The investment will help create 66 transitional housing spaces in Thunder Bay, along with wraparound services. Justin Hardy has this story.
The funding comes from the DSAB through the province's homelessness prevention program and will help cover 6 housing initiatives, creating dozens of new units for people experiencing mental health, addictions, and other homelessness challenges. Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Kevin Holland made the announcement on behalf of Ontario Housing Minister Paul Calandra. He says these units are much needed in the city.
These type of projects are really going to are foundational in helping us to address some of the problems that we're experiencing in the city. So, the creation of 66 new transitional spaces and supportive housing spaces is a big step forward for the city and the region.
The announcement took place at this building on Syndicate Avenue. The Elizabeth Fry Society is receiving nearly $1 million to turn it into 12 transitional housing spaces. Urban Abbey is receiving over $3.5 million for combined 38 transitional housing spaces across 4 locations, with this building on Simpson Street being retrofitted to create 24 of those units. Meanwhile, Alpha Court has big plans for this property on East Miles Street. The agency is receiving $3.8 million to build a 16-unit transitional tiny home community. Alpha Court Executive Director Nicole Latour says each organization is taking slightly different approaches to reach the same goal.
We have such a need for housing and for various populations. So women in conflict with the law, people that are facing addiction and mental health challenges in the community, people experiencing homelessness. So we really need a vast service approach to individuals and helping them meet their needs.
The projects also include access to other wraparound services like job training and addictions and mental health services, according to Holland.
Without the wraparound services, you're not really, you're not going to get to the core of the problems. So the wraparound services that are being provided through the funding announced here today at these agencies is key to helping people on that path forward.
Last year, the province tripled its homelessness prevention funding for the DSAB to $16.5 million. More than 50% of that funding has now been allocated to these capital projects. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
Martin Falls First Nation has declared a state of emergency due to a high-risk contamination of the community's drinking water. Chief Bruce Ashton-Penescum says an operational failure in their wastewater system is causing raw sewage to spill into the river system, upstream from the water treatment plant's intake. The community has been dealing with boil water advisories for around 18 years now. The chief says Ottawa constructed a new water treatment plant, but failed to look at the problematic wastewater system. Around 300 people live in Martin Falls, and they've all been warned not to drink any water from their taps. Thunder Bay's new boulevard maintenance bylaw will be going back to city administration for more adjustments. That after City Council and staff heard from 9 deputants on the bylaw during last night's meeting. Jessica Clement has the details.
City Council's final meeting of the year featured a festive spirit in council chambers as a children's choir from Colgrane Morgan performed.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
After that came a lengthy discussion on the revised boulevard garden and maintenance bylaw, which would allow gardens to be planted by residents on city-owned boulevards. This was the second time the bylaw made it onto Council's agenda after receiving some pushback in September. City Climate Action Specialist Danielle Tom says the new draft features numerous revisions, including raising the maximum plant height to 1 meter and allowing planting in setback areas.
The resulting draft boulevard garden and maintenance bylaw supports more biodiversity than most boulevard gardens that exist in Ontario today, while ensuring that members of the public, private utilities, and city assets remain protected.
The new draft still received some pushback, with 9 deputations on Monday night. The residents noted that the bylaw was a good step forward, but height limitations, the banning of shrubs and plant supports, and a mandatory registration were common themes among those who presented.
Speaking for the peas and the beans and the tomatoes and like the ambitious Brussels sprout that just like wants to grow taller in order to be productive, then I think there's a case to be made to letting food grow to its natural height, even if it's in a garden box.
Rather than a universal ban on objects, a more equitable approach would allow items like tomato cages, bean poles, and cucumber trellises on a temporary seasonal basis, so long as they do not create a visibility or tripping hazard.
After being asked by Councillor Kristen Oliver, City Manager John Collins said administration was open to consider additional changes, asking for a referral to take a look at 3 areas brought up by the residents. Those topics were permitting shrubs within the height restrictions, allowing plants to grow 1 meter above planter boxes, and banning pesticides and rodenticides.
As many deputants have identified, there are no clear best practices at this point. This is evolving. And what we are recommending, I believe, is quite positive and is a measured path forward.
Councillor Casey Atraney asked if administration would allow one more addition to the referral.
And that would be looking at temporary plant supports to be added as long as it stays within the height restriction.
Council voted unanimously in support of Atraney's amendment, as well as the referral. Administration will present their findings in the new year, and Council will then vote on whether to ratify the bylaw. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Rainy River MP Marcus Palowski weighed in today on the turmoil within his government. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland's shocking resignation letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yesterday was a black mark on his leadership. Palowski says it's an unfortunate situation for everyone in the federal Liberal Party.
I don't think you can sugarcoat this to make it look good. I mean, it wasn't good. I mean, it certainly wasn't good. On the day of the fall economic statement that she stepped down, I don't think you can avoid that. Certainly mistakes were made, but so be it.
Palowski says he feels sorry for Freeland, whom he calls an excellent finance minister and a popular member of their caucus. Several Liberal MPs have joined the opposition leaders in demanding that Trudeau resign over the situation. But despite their differences over the years, Palowski says Trudeau is Canada's duly elected Prime Minister, and he won't add his voice to the calls for resignation.
It's for the Prime Minister to make the walk in the snow. It's not for me to throw him into the snowbank. So I leave it to him, the decision as to when to step down. And ultimately he's going to step down at some point. That's for him to make. And given that, and given the fact that I believe it's for him to make, I'm not second guessing. And I think, so far he's stated he's running in the next election. If that's the case, then okay, I'll run with him. I'll do my best.
We'll have more on the fallout at Parliament Hill a little later on in our news hour. But first, a new report has found a $12.7 billion provincial shortfall to keep schools in good repair. The majority of those in Toronto. CTV's Siobhan Morris reports.
Most of Ontario's 4,900 schools get a passing grade from the Financial Accountability Office. They're in good shape, but
37% were below a state of good repair, which means that these school buildings require repairs or should be replaced with a new school.
The problem most acute at the Toronto District School Board, where 84% of schools are below that good repair threshold. Getting all TDSB schools fixed up could cost an estimated $6.8 billion. Across the province,
the FAO estimates that it would cost a total of $31.4 billion over 10 years to keep all school buildings in a state of good repair and to build new schools to address permanent student capacity pressures.
Far less than the government has budgeted.
Which results in an estimated funding shortfall over 10 years of $12.7 billion.
The Minister of Education defends government spending, doubling funding to build and expand schools and cutting construction timelines in half, with 240 new schools going up.
This is an issue of choices and priorities, and this government has the wrong priorities.
The opposition calling for a colossal cash infusion.
Tripling at least what our existing funding is to cover those capital expenses right now.
Teachers say they and their students have been struggling in rundown spaces.
No amount of dedication can overcome classrooms that are freezing in the winter, unbearably hot in the spring and fall, too small to meet the growing needs of our inclusive classrooms, or without safe drinking water.
The FAO finds 1,500 schools are over capacity.
The flip side is some 900 schools are using less than 60% of their space. School boards have been pleading with the government to end a 7-year moratorium on school closures. They say that's stretching their budgets thin. The TDSB chair renewed that call today, also asking for sustainable, predictable funding that truly reflects the cost of maintaining their facilities. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Postal workers here in our region and across Canada were back on the job today. The 4-week strike came to an end after the Canada Industrial Relations Board ordered the posties back to work, with a deal to be hammered out in the coming year. Local union president Leo Favreau had mixed feelings about the latest developments.
I'm happy for the people that need the money and need to get back to work, but I'm also very upset because there's so many bad things can come of this.
The strike began on November 15th, with around 260 postal workers across northwestern Ontario walking the picket lines. As the labor dispute dragged on, the negotiations appeared to go nowhere. Favreau says the federal government's decision to intervene hurts the process and basically takes away their right to strike. He thinks Canada Post knew this would happen and believes that's why the corporation refused to negotiate. Favreau was back on his regular postal route today and says the return to work under these circumstances is not what they wanted.
In our plant, we've gone back to work. We're doing what's called work to rule, so no extras, we do our job the best we can, and that's it. No going on above and beyond anymore. Until this is settled, that's basically right now the only path we can take.
We'll also have more on the postal strike later on in our show when we look at some national headlines. It was an exciting moment in Ottawa yesterday afternoon for the Thunder Bay Police Service and advocates for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited people. The Tree of Hope project shown for the first time at Parliament Hill. The Tree of Hope was first launched in 2019 at the City Police Headquarters by Constable Charlene Bordeaux. The tree, with its red bulbs, is meant to raise awareness about the tragic loss of Indigenous women and girls, honor their memories, and convince anyone with information about those cases to come forward. Local MP and Minister of Indigenous Services Patty Haidu helped make the ceremony in Ottawa happen after speaking to Chief Darcy Fleury about the cause. Fleury and Bordeaux hope this will bring national attention to MMIW and that more agencies across Canada will join the Tree of Hope project. We're now joined by Haley Perreault, our weather anchor over here. And you know, we were talking yesterday on the News Hour. It was a pretty good day. That's not exactly the case over the next coming week or so. I feel like, that was kind of our last little day in the sunshine.
Well, yes. But I mean, today we got a little peek of sunshine, so that could be good enough to some. I mean, I was out when it was what we'd consider mostly cloudy, so sun was still making an appearance. It was just a little shy today. But around later this afternoon, around 2, 3 o'clock, that's when it was the brightest. For the most part, though, cloudy day, unfortunately. On the good side, though, we are still above seasonal for temperatures. That is going to change, like Vasilios mentioned. Our high today was 1 degree, but you probably didn't see that unless you were feeling restless last night, because that 1 degree we last saw at 4 in the morning. So not many people out and about then, but our low for today was -5. We hit that around 3 o'clock this afternoon. We've been sitting there for a while now. And really, our seasonal high for the days are -7, so really not that bad. The only thing that may have bitten a little bit was our winds from the northwest. They were gusty at times. We saw the gustiest at 51 kilometers an hour, but that was also earlier in the morning. For the most part, gusting around 20 to 30 kilometers an hour throughout the day. Now for our region today, we did see a light snow for a lot of areas, pretty consistently throughout the day as well. And consistency to the west is very key because there wasn't a lot of fluctuation. We saw the coldest temperatures during the day in Red Lake, -13. You can see right now they're at -10, only a 3-degree difference. And Sioux Lookout was fairly similar. They're one of the warmer places in this kind of consistent area. They're at -8 right now, but their fluctuation was very little as well, ranging only around -10 as their coldest during the day today. So only a few 3 to 4 degrees difference for most areas. The wind chill does play a factor, of course, though. We saw Red Lake with wind chills of -17, -18 most of the day. And Fort Frances right now at -9. Actually, a lot of places are at some of their warmer temperatures for the day right now. Like Atikokan and Upsala, they were almost consistently -8 all day, but now they're -7, so woohoo to 1 degree, you know, gotta take what you can. Now, Armstrong and Greenstone are the areas that did start to see more of those gusty northwestern winds like we saw here in Thunder Bay. Nipigon in particular actually had a very similar day to Thunder Bay today, but they did get 1 degree colder already. They're at -6 right now. And Marathon and Wawa had a fairly comfortable day today, a mix of sun and cloud there. Greenstone did have some light snows. Now they're just overcast. And Sault Ste. Marie is still seeing some light snow, but they've been hovering around the freezing mark, mainly 1 degree most of the day. Now they're at 0. As for Thunder Bay tonight, we'll drop down to -9, feeling like -15. And this truly is what I would consider the nicest we're going to get for the next little while, as tomorrow our high of the day may only be 1 degree warmer than this low. So that's definitely something to consider. We may see periods of snow this evening, but it should end before the morning, and then we'll just see little sporadic chances of snow, Vasilios. And yes, colder temperatures, like I mentioned. I'll give you the details on that a little later.
Okay, so maybe time to bring out the gloves and the hat and everything, because I've been kind of holding off as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't hold back anymore. That's for sure.
Okay, really appreciate that, Haley. And after the break, we are going to turn back to the turmoil in Ottawa with the Liberal Party, where members of Justin Trudeau's own party are calling for his resignation.
The Prime Minister is living in a false reality. He's delusional if he thinks we can continue